Hi, honey. I'm finally at the hotel. I just wanted you to know I've unplugged the TV as I promised. I smiled as we continued our conversation before he had to run to his first meeting. Well, why did Dave tell me that? Because as part of his recovery from porn addiction, he told me he would not watch any TV when traveling. Access to pornography was just too easy. It's such a simple thing. However, when you are a porn addict spouse, the small kept promises build trust as nothing else can. In Worthy of Her Trust by authors Stephen Arterburn and Jason B. Martinkus, they encourage recovering addicts to deal in the details because that's the currency of trust building. You know, they're right. Each time Dave showed integrity in the everyday moments of life, my trust built one crumb at a time. You know, it sounds harsh to say it that way, but that's how it felt. His pornography addiction shredded my trust. It obliterated it. Rebuilding trust takes delicate care and consistency. It doesn't happen, poof, I quit looking at porn, now trust me. Men who expect that are gravely mistaken. Plus, that kind of attitude further demeans and negates the damage they've done to their wife. Basically, that attitude says, well, I said I'm sorry, so forgive me and let's move on. I'm not willing to put in the work necessary to restore your confidence and trust in me. You're just not that important to me. It's one of those get out of jail free card desires. But wouldn't it be simpler if you could say sorry and trust was restored? Well, yeah, it would. But that's not how it works for a wounded spouse. You need to understand it takes time and positive boundaries to build trust. Well, how do you do that? Well, here's what my husband did for me. First of all, he encouraged the development of his relationship with God first. Not only does porn addiction break marital intimacy, but it also breaks spiritual intimacy with God. You know, when we deliberately sin, and by that I mean we know what we're doing is wrong, but we choose to pursue it anyway, those sins interfere with our communication and relationship with God. Each time I observe Dave reading the Bible, praying, and then expressing what he's learning and discovering about God, he builds trust with me, and I can see his heart change, the positive attitude changes, and the developing patience, and I feel safe. When I prepare to do something challenging and Dave asks to pray for me or over me, wow, I'm not sure I can really explain what happens, but I feel invigorated for the task at hand, and I see he's committed to rebuilding his connection with God, as well as our connection. The second one is complete transparent truth. There is no such thing as a little white lie. Either it's the truth or it's a lie. And when you've been wounded by the one you trusted your heart and body to, any word that isn't absolute truth causes your mind to jump to the worst possible conclusions. I'm not saying that's fair or right, but it's the reality for the spouse who has experienced repeated lies and betrayal. Life really becomes black and white. There's no gray. Well, this was hard for Dave and me to grasp initially. In my wounded state, I wondered if I'd ever know the truth again. Thankfully, as he told me the truth about everything imaginable, including those tough subjects like, how far did you go with the pornography? Have you ever had sex with another woman? Well, slowly, my trust built again. Being a truth teller is a matter of integrity. Now keep in mind, telling the truth also means you don't forget to mention something that might paint you in a poor light. When you're recovering from this type of wound, egos get in the way. Rebuilding trust and your relationship mean every word matters. So ask yourself, am I telling the truth, or am I trying to protect myself in some way? If you can't honestly answer that you're telling the truth, you need to confess that to your spouse if you hope to rebuild trust. Number 3, respectful interactions. Overall, Dave excels in this area. He's kind, gentle, and respectful most of the time. But in our recovery, I learned respectful conduct extended far beyond this normal treatment. For instance, when we engaged in intimate behavior, if he got frustrated or angry when I didn't respond positively to some activity or position, he showed disrespect. On the flip side, when I continued to live with suspicion and fear in an area where he proved he was trustworthy, I showed disrespect. When either of us doesn't adhere to agreed upon boundaries, the boundary breaker shows disrespect. You cannot demand respect from another. You receive respect as you exhibit it. When you treat your spouse with kindness and care, even though they don't trust you, You show that you understand the damage you've done for them. Respect, like trust, builds in everyday, small acts of consistent conduct. Number 4, accept each other's level of healing. Just like I can't demand how my husband learns to turn away from porn, he can't dictate my recovery. This understanding unlocked real freedom in me. When I quit trying to control my husband's recovery, I had space to work on my trust issues with God and Dave. And it's amazing what God does in and through us when we get out of the way. The more I turned to God with my fears, questions, pain, disgust, and doubts, the better I could cope with being around Dave. Initially, it was really hard for me to be around him because I didn't like him. I knew I chose to love him because love is a choice, but I didn't want to be around him much. And that's a pretty normal response to a marital division that's caused by porn addiction. Why do I want to spend time with someone who traded me for an image on a screen? But slowly, through reading the Bible, journaling, and going on walks, God allowed me to work through my pain and questions. And Dave allowed me to heal in my way and time. He created moments that built trust. He respected my boundaries, which showed me I could trust him in this area. The 5th one is agree on healthy boundaries. Well, how do you establish healthy boundaries when you don't feel like they're even anywhere in the neighborhood? Well, you won't do this immediately in many cases, but there is one that I encourage you to establish right away at the onset of your recovery process, and it's this. Pornography does not belong in your marriage, ever. Now, I want to define that one, though, because I want to be really clear. It means you don't visit porn sites on the internet, strip clubs, or peep shows. It means you don't read materials that exhibit scantily clad men or women, or that titillate your sex drive, or watch movies or TV shows that carry any hint of sexually explicit information or scenes. Meet with a person of the opposite sex alone or in private. Travel with a person of the opposite sex without a third party. If you're the addict, agreeing to these healthy boundaries starts to build trust with your wounded spouse. If you're the wounded spouse, you need these boundaries just as much because you need the requirements that start to rebuild your trust and grant you some peace of mind. Well, I'm sure that by now you can come up with a whole bunch of other additional boundaries. Things like no more excuses of your behavior. Own it. The good, the bad, and the inappropriate. You have to end an extramarital relationship immediately. You need to learn to speak to one another respectfully. You need to practice good emotional intelligence. No gaslighting the other person, and no projecting onto the other person for anything. Another one is answering a phone call from your spouse right away or calling back within 5 minutes. If you've been involved in an extramarital affair, then you need to change your phone number and restrict who has access to that. You grant access to each other for all emails, text messages, and social media sites. There are many more boundaries you might need to establish. The key is that whatever you do, you must agree on them with each other. And as you choose to daily adopt healthy boundaries and allow God to heal, you'll see the changes begin to take place as you build trust with each other. If you're not sure where or how to start, please reach out. I've been where you are. Let's talk. Hop on over to KirstenDSamuel.com and click the blue button. Until next time.